Hello, Julie here, and thank you for joining me here today. Today I'm going to be creating a couple of cards using chipboards as part of my card structure. The chipboard I'm using is from Denise Boddey Designs, and I will be putting a link to Denise's shop and the chipboard that I'm using in the description box below. I'm also using her papers. So for my first card, I'm going to use a piece of chipboard. It's called Old Scroll Panels, and it's DB479, and I've painted it white. Now I've cut my card base 5 7/8 inches square because that's the height of the chipboard. Now I'm cutting a panel off of the front of the card base that is about 2 3/4 inches wide. Now that's going to allow me to add that panel to my card front and not have it overlapping the edge. Now, as I said, I've painted it white, and I've painted both sides of it because you will see the back of it when the card is open. Now I'm going to use my art glitter glue just to attach that to the top face, I guess, of the card front. Now I'm going to choose a pattern paper from Denise Boddey's Elegance collection. The one I'm going to choose is called After the Rain. My original idea was to use the flowers, I think they're Morning Glories, as the front panel of my card, but ironically I end up using the other side of the paper for this particular panel. So I went ahead and positioned it so that I had the Morning Glory flowers positioned nicely on the front, and I ended up cutting my panel 3 1/8 by 5 7/8. So that's going to go right to the edges of my card, and it's also going to cover the join where the chipboard attaches to the front of the card. Now I'm going to cut some pattern paper for the inside of my card. Now I measured that, just leaving a very fine border around the inside, like a 1/16 of an inch if it's lucky. So the paper ends up being 5 3/4 inches square. And this is where I decide to go with the less vibrant pattern paper on the front of the card. Now I'm going to use my Versacolor black ink cube, ink around the edges of both of those pieces of pattern paper and attach the paper to my card base. I'm going to use liquid glue to do that, and when I'm using liquid glue I'll use my art glitter glue. Art glitter glue holds great, but it doesn't allow for much wriggle room or wriggle time. To create my embellishments for this card, actually I'm using the same embellishments on both cards. I'm using this die, a craft barn die, and it's a stamp and die together, and it's called Primrose. So I have stamped and heat embossed these flowers, and I'm going to now assemble them. So using Versafine Onyx black ink, I stamped I think it's about 4 sizes of the flower onto some of the pattern paper. So I'm using the same pattern paper that I used for my background, and then I used clear embossing powder to heat emboss it. I prefer to do it that way because if you get your embossing powder in places you don't want it, you end up with clear spots, instead of if you use black embossing powder, well then you end up with black spots. So what I'm doing here is I'm shaping my flowers. I'm just using a flower shaping tool and rubbing into the back of each flower layer, and that pushes the middle of the petal up when it's up the right way. So I'm going to do that for each of these layers, and then I'm going to use my art glitter glue to just a little dot in the center of each layer, and then layer each layer on top of each other. So I'm going to start with the larger layer and work my way up to smaller. I'm going to make an assortment of sizes. I'm only going to make one of the very largest ones. That's got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. and then I'm going to make another smaller one that's got 4 layers, and then another one that's got 3 layers. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'll put this on fast forward. Once my layers are assembled, I'm going to put my flower on my foam mat and push in the centre with my flower shaping tool to help lift those petals up. So by pushing down in the middle, the actual petals actually come back up a little. So that's how I shape my flowers. So now I've got my flowers assembled, and I have some fussy cut leaves and a fussy cut moth that I plan on putting on the front of my card. So I've played around with the placement of my embellishments, and now I'm just going to stick them in place. I've added a little bit of scrap cardboard to the body of the moth so that the moth actually sits up slightly. It's more on a level with the top of the flowers. The sentiment was fussy cut from one of the papers in the paper collection. To add a little bit of bling to my card, I'm going to use these Kaisercraft rhinestones. These are the clear, I think they are. Oh, they're called silver. So I'm just going to add one to the centre of each of the flowers. I'm going to use an assortment of sizes because there is an assortment of sizes in this pack. So the largest flower will have the largest rhinestone and work their way down from there. They are self-adhesive, but I always like to add a little bit of extra glue just to make sure they're going to stay in place. Now this second card is an adaptation of a card I made a couple of months ago, and I'll put a link to that video in the description box as well. So I'm using a 300 GSM piece of white cardstock here, and I've cut it 5 1/4 inches square. I have scored it through the middle, and what is that? 2 1/2, 2 5/8, I guess, and now I'm using a 3 3/4 inch circle die to cut out through the centre of that piece of cardstock. So that is going to be my card base. That's it for the card base, there is no more. So I'm burnishing the folds there, and I'm using another piece of chipboard for this, and that chipboard is called Wreath of Thorns, I think, and I'll put a description box. I'll put a link to that in the description box. If you want to use something like this, I have given that a coat of white paint on both sides. Now I'm going to cut a piece of pattern paper. I'm using the same pattern paper, so I'm getting 2 cards out of the 1 sheet of paper here. So that's the Elegance collection After the Rain, and I'm cutting that so that it's 5 inches square. Now I want to cut the same 3 3/4 inch circle out of that pattern paper. So I'm positioning it where I want it on my card base, and then putting my die into the circle that I've already cut, and now I am attaching that in place so that it doesn't move, and I'm going to run that through my big shot. So there we have the card base and the pattern paper both cut with the same hole that matches up perfectly in the centre. So now I'm going to do the same as I did with my first card. I'm going to use my Versacolour black ink cube, ink around the edges and inside the circle on both pieces, and then attach the pattern paper on top of my card base using my art glitter glue. Then I'll fold and burnish my crease back into my card base. So now I'm going to position my chipboard circle or wreath around my hole. So you can see that the chipboard sort of pokes inside of the hole that I've cut. That's exactly what I was looking for. I wanted some of that rough edge or that jagged edgy look to my circle. Now I'm going to attach that chipboard to my circle so that it sits nicely around that circle we've cut out. You have to remember here not to put glue on the whole circle. You can mark it, but what I did was I put the glue on and then wiped off what I didn't need. I mean, I didn't go right around, but I did approximately half. So I've made some more flowers using that same stamp and die set, the Craft Barn Stamp and Die Primrose. And for the leaves this time, I've used my uniquely creative die called Little Leaves, and I've just cut that from a bit of sort of like a greenish pattern paper from another paper, but in that same paper range. So now I'm going to position my flowers and leaves around my wreath, and I'm going to attach them to the chipboard using the art glitter glue. Now, I don't know about you, but I have chosen to use these papers because they have got a light pattern behind it, and so when you open your card and you can see the back of the flowers, it still looks presentable. It doesn't look like a mess. So yeah, I'm just attaching all of those leaves and flowers now, and in what I hope is a pleasing design, and yeah, and we'll see what happens then. I did contemplate taking the flowers all around the wreath, but I decided to leave some of the wreath showing, just because I like the look of that. But you could certainly go around the whole circle with your flowers, and you could use any embellishments here. I mean, you could make hearts for a wedding card, or you could, make stars or any shape at all, not necessarily just flowers. So open to most occasions, I think, this style. And of course, different colours create different moods. So yeah, completely open to your interpretation. Once again, I'm adding the Kaiser Craft rhinestones to the centres of the flowers. To add a little bit more sparkle to my card, I'm going to use some Kinder Glitz and a brush and just add a light coat of Kinder Glitz to my chipboard, both front and back. To make it easier to work with, I just squeeze a little bit out onto an acrylic block and then work from there with a soft brush. For the sentiment on this card, I had these sentiments, pre-printed sentiments from Uniquely Creative, and I couldn't decide what colour to have, so I cut two. I cut one from this lighter colour and one from this darker colour and one from a lighter colour, and tried them both, and I decided to go with the lighter colour. So I'm going to attach that sentiment to a couple of layers of scrap cardboard, just on half of it, because it's going to overlap that bottom flower, and that has got a bit of dimension to it. So by putting the layers of cardboard under the right hand edge of the sentiment, I'm making it sit level. So that's my two cards for today. I created these cards as part of my design team work for Denise Boddey Designs. She has beautiful papers and a huge range of chipboard. I will put links to her shop and the products I've used in the description box if you're interested in having a look at those. So thank you for watching my video today. I really love the fact that you spend some time here with me. I appreciate all of my subscribers, and thank you very much. And I hope that you can join me when I post my next video. Okay, bye.